Welcome to A Million Stories. We are sitting with Sedar. Welcome, Sedar.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
And we're actually sitting in the iconic Paradiso, which is, it's also my first time here, which is one of Holland's most famous, what would you call it?
Concert venues, actually.
Yeah. Concert venues. So actually, who's played in here in the past?
Who didn't, but some concerts I still remember are, for example, Prince, Grace Jones, even Lady Gaga played here, actually. One of her first concerts in Holland was here, yeah.
And what's actually brought us to meet and to talk with Sedar is that he has two passions. And the first one is very closely linked to Sedar, which is fighting for gay rights. And also organizing events in the Paradiso, which is why we're sitting here. So I think what we were talking about before the camera started rolling was you have to choose whether you're Turkish or whether you're gay. Let's maybe start there.
Well, that's actually an anecdote I have from Berlin. A couple of years ago, I went to Berlin. There's a big quite a big Turkish-German community living in Berlin. And there was this theater play which had the title Bist du schwul oder bist du Türke? Which you can translate as are you gay or are you Turkish? And that struck me because I found it like, what stupid question is that? You know,
but a good question.
It is a good question because I started thinking, and it was in the it's almost 8, 9, no, maybe 10 years ago now. It was in the period where discussions about integration of minorities, ethnic minorities, about identity issues, was at its peak, the discussions about it. And I talked to one of the makers of the theater play, and they explained it quite good, actually, because they said as a gay, second generation living in Germany or in Turkey, it doesn't matter actually, but in this specific context, it's about migrants. As a migrant gay, you are actually put in a position to choose constantly. If you choose, as a second generation Turk living in the Netherlands or in Germany, to be openly gay, your ethnic own community will consider that as letting go of its roots, of its national pride, of its culture, etc. So they think you are choosing to be more German than Turkish. The other way around, if you are gay and if you not do your coming out and if you don't choose to be openly gay, the so-called accepting German society says, well, you're not modern enough, individualistic or German or modern enough or strong enough to be one of us because you still choose to be bound by your Turkish roots. So that struck me. That was actually the starting point for my main event I'm still doing now after 9 years, which is called Pink Istanbul. And that's a celebration of being Turkish, being gay, living in the Netherlands, being whatever you want to be.
Being exactly. Yeah. It's well, it strikes me that, you get isolated even when you're living in a foreign country, that the community here still isolates you, even though they're not from Holland.
No. Yeah, it's you're a minority in a minority group, a double minority you can call it, but it's really striking because being LGBT, being gay, is actually sometimes used in general politics of minorities. We see that in Holland now as well. Right-wing politicians claiming our gays or their gays because it's supposedly opposite the migrants who are not we enough, you know. It's like it's being used all the time, and not only in the Turkish sense, but the Turkish one is, I mean, because of my Turkish background, I was interested in that, but it's still a case actually.
So when did you move to Holland, and what brought you to Holland?
I'm actually born and raised here. My grandparents came here in '62. My granddad actually came here. He stayed here 4 or 5 years. He worked here. He couldn't stay here, but in the meantime, he brought over actually my dad and my mother. And they came here in '66, '67, and I was born in '77.
Okay.
In Amsterdam.
Yeah. So you're an Amsterdammer.
Yes, I am.
And I mean, you were talking about that you discovered this whole choose whether you're gay or what was it, gay or
Turkish, or your
and
ethnic
that was
identity.
and that was in Germany.
Yeah.
And what's that like in Holland? Because from my perspective, I'm also a foreigner in Holland.
Yeah.
They generally do seem to be quite integrated in Holland, and quite, the gays, the Turkish and the gays,
Well, I'm actually not that negative as well about the integration of minorities in general, and LGBTs, not integration, but the level of acceptance and normality, so to call it, because acceptance is also a funny word in this sense. It's a negative word, but in general I'm not that negative. But of course, populism, like in many other countries in Europe, is also existing here, and sometimes the debate in society gets really hard, really tough, and people are put in corners, and people have to respond because they are labeled. Whereas the good thing would be to have as many labels as possible, and you can choose from whatever you are and what makes you feel more comfortable. That's under pressure, it's still, and especially also for the Turkish community as well.
So now, Pink Istanbul, we can hear music in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear it on the camera, but they're going to start a huge show later on in the big hall. Talk to us about Pink Istanbul, because this is your passion project. So let's talk about that.
It started 9 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, after my visit to Berlin, as I told you. At that time, I was actually myself coming out of the closet, to call it like that, publicly. Before that, only my friends and my really close relatives knew only, which was not without any trouble, of course, because my coming out was, in a majority, it was really okay. I mean, it felt really good, but with the parents, it was quite a problem, actually.
But I think that's where it's always on that intimate level. That's where it is the most difficult. Generally, the public, or the world has accepted it, or it's the intimate side.
It's the intimate side, and the most funny thing is my family and relatives in Turkey, which people would consider more conservative than in Holland, they actually accepted it immediately in my family in Holland, whom you would expect to be more liberal or open. They had quite more difficulty with accepting it, and it took them 2 years. But in these 2 years, I actually didn't sit down. I mean, the coming out came with getting to know different people, people who were active on LGBT rights issues, etc. And
LGBT rights issues?
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, and intersex is also added to it recently. That's actually the abbreviation in activists, between activists. Because of my job in Paradiso, I did some events on Turkish culture, modern Turkish culture, Turkish music, performing arts. I got to know a lot of people, and after my trip to Berlin, I decided to do something with it. I mean, I liked modern contemporary Turkish music. I like contemporary Western music, so to call it. I like going out. I have friends of many communities living in Holland, in Amsterdam. Never it was a problem for me to just take different labels when I needed them or not. I mean, I felt quite free until my coming out, because then I, for the first time, realized that if you do a coming out in a minority community living in the Netherlands, some labels you cannot use anymore freely. Some people try to decide for you which label you should use where. A recent example of that is years after I started doing Pink Istanbul, with a girlfriend of mine, she's an activist, Dönefil, we did the first Turkish gay pride boat during the Amsterdam Pride. And we decided to use, for example, the national colors of Turkey, which is red and white, and some symbols of Turkish culture. That turned out to be a huge problem with death threats on the internet, etc.
Really?
Yeah, because people said, well, you as a gay now are actually making our proud colors, our proud culture, miserable, or etc. So that label was taken away from me. I couldn't use it according to some. And of course, when the moment you choose to use it, you're an activist as well. So actually, I didn't choose to be an activist in that sense.
Yeah.
I became one because it felt really strange that others were deciding for me how to express myself or how to express ourselves in a group, or how to party, or which music to listen to, or...
So it's fine to be gay in Amsterdam. In a way, this is how it sounds. It's fine to be gay in Amsterdam, but then you need to use those beautiful rainbow colors and stay within the realms of what it means.
Yeah. And the same thing happened again, like in the case in Germany. From the Dutch community, we also got the critics. Why are you using the Turkish colors? Aren't you integrated? Aren't you gay like all of us? And why the Turkish national colors and the Turkish music, etc.? You should use the rainbow colors and not the Turkish ones. So actually 8 years after we started doing Pink Istanbul, about being happy and proud about being whatever ethnic background and being lesbian or gay, still today is an issue.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So Pink Istanbul, because I hear you've also been now going back to Turkey a lot. So this was in Amsterdam that you, on the boat you had this the first launch.
Yeah.
So what's happening in Turkey?
Well, in Turkey, the gay rights movement has been going on for almost 20 years officially, with really good developments. Recently, we have a more conservative government, and trouble started coming up after the Gezi Park incidents, because many young groups, many more liberal young people, they actually found each other in their common goals of more freedom, more personal freedom, and less government intervention in the media, in journalism, etc. And that's actually joined with the LGBT movement of Turkey as well, the gay movement.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first signal for, I think, the Turkish government now, like, okay, this gay movement is getting bigger and bigger, and and it's getting international, and it's getting visible too much. So for the first time since 20 years, they actually decided that the Gay Pride March in Istanbul, which is in every June, every year for 20 years now, they abolished it. It turned out to huge riots with tear gas and police hitting on people, etc. It was the first time for me also that I saw things can go backwards as well. Emancipation movements can hit back as well, which is not to say that I'm negative now, because being more visible always comes with a counter reaction.
Those who speak loud get the most attention.
So before that, we already started doing what I do here is Pink Istanbul, and I do an event every year, Pink Amsterdam. I do that in Istanbul. So I didn't do it last year, but after this recent incidents with the gay pride in Istanbul and the police and the government attacking it, I decided to one more edition again. So in November this year, I'm going with a crew of Dutch DJs and dancers and the beautiful MC, Miss Banti. We're going to Istanbul again to rock the city with a gay party like we do that in Amsterdam.
And that's what it is. So you organize a whole bunch of, your favorite artists, and you have a great big celebration.
Yes,
that's what you create.
That's what we do. We started doing it very small. And the second edition was immediately like 900, maybe 1,000 people in a city like Istanbul. And the thing we did for the first time was I chose, especially like I work in Paradiso, I wanted a main location, not a backstreet location to rent, but a main location which all the news media knows and all the famous names also perform. I wanted to put a gay party, which is very popular in Amsterdam. I wanted that to be on stage on that kind of a location. And it was immediately a huge success, because the first and the second edition were sold out, also with straight people coming, which is really important for us, and the Turkish media with a lot of attention for it. But the thing that decided the success of it was that if you work with people who are good in their job, with their music, but also nice people to work with, and they feel the urge and the necessity to do this. Why are we doing this? There are many parties, but why specifically this party? If artists feel that element as well, something happens between the audience
Crowd
and the
and
artists,
there's
and
an
friendships.
energy.
Yeah, and there are many friendships made in the Pink Istanbul, Pink Amsterdam bridge, which is something I'm very proud of.
Yeah, nice.
Because it's my bridge. I mean,
yeah,
I felt
you created that.
not because that I created it, but it's something I wanted to feel. I wanted to have this distance between some part of my roots in Istanbul and Amsterdam. I wanted the distance to get smaller. And it did for some.
Wow. That was one of your dreams.
Yeah. It's one of my main driving forces, actually, to don't need a bridge anymore.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I believe you have a child?
Yes, we do. I'm recently married, but I'm together with my husband now, Hans, for 10 years now, and we have a child who is almost 10 years as well.
So if you can, because you specifically are working in, your passion is in I don't like to say fighting for, because that's also not a nice word, but your passion is about bringing the world together. Like, let's take away all the bridges and all the separations and all the labels.
Yeah.
And
I started with my world, actually, bringing it together for myself.
That's how it starts.
Yeah. It's that's why I don't call or use the word fighting or activism as well. I just did what I wanted and what I needed and what I wanted to share with my surrounding, and also with people I don't know who want to share are always welcome, because the more we shared it, the smaller the distance got. But
that is what life should be about. If everyone really truly follows their heart, and what their soul, like, you know, what their heart really believes in.
I believe that.
That will happen.
Yeah.
Like, all these separations, and people will be happy. But anyway, that's what we're trying to achieve. This is exactly why we want to tell your story or share your story.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad I can share it, because it's still going on, and we are still doing some nice stuff with concerts, with music, and again, this Pink Amsterdam thing. And I'm coming with a new concept for next year, which is not only concerned or about Istanbul or Turkey, but I think it's time now to make the world, also my own world, bigger, because I'm also interested in music from the Balkans, Greek music, or music from Cyprus, and some music from the Middle East. So actually these roots of mine got bigger and bigger and not smaller.
Yeah, because you're getting more attention. So when you say you're interested in that music, you're going to get...
I'm going to do some concerts and some, maybe, I'm working on a new events like Pink Istanbul, but probably it's going to be different, with not focusing mainly on gay identity, but with a prime place for it as well, but more about actually all the labels you can choose from.
I was just going to say, you should have like this, just...
A label party.
A label party, pick a label.
Yeah, pick a label. That's a very good one, actually.
Cool.
It's going to be something like that,
Nice. Well, just on closing, if there are other young, maybe gay kids out there, or maybe not kids.
There are some grown-ups as well, still in.
I know. What advice would you give them? What would from your experience and from following your heart, and what would you say to them?
Well, actually, I'm not going to say to really do something or don't do something, but the thing for myself, and it's a very private kind of feeling maybe to share, but I discovered that in the end it's all about what do you remember, what did you share, not about what did you build or have or do or not, but the things you remember mostly are the things you shared, and the rest is maybe important also, but so try to remember nice stuff with the people you like.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sedar.
Yeah. Thank you.